Morning.
Morning. We'll wait for Jesse to get back, and maybe Amanda will come in. Sounds like Jesse's back.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
We can probably get started now. I don't know if anyone else is going to be here.
Okay. Yeah. So welcome to the meeting. And I don't know if people want to do updates, but I'll start with just recapping what we've done this week. So we had our first DevoWorm meeting this week, and we talked about a couple things. So check out the content on the DevoWorm YouTube channel. We had a couple discussions about things that are kind of ongoing collaborations and some papers. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Then Wednesday we had our Cognition Futures meeting also. I think it was the second one of the year, where we did some more administrative work. And we kind of I think we tried to center some things. I want to talk a little bit about the paper outline that we have for that and the special issue that we want to contribute to. And then Thursday we had our cybernetics reading group. We covered a paper that was interesting, and we had I think some pretty good discussion around that. It was on, I think, 20th century machines or something like that, and how living systems are different from those machines, but maybe not so much from 21st century machines. So, and then that was the first meeting of the year as well for that. So, yeah, we're getting things off the ground for 2024. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's been a really interesting week. I'll kind of, I don't know. Whoops. It's been actually, personally, it's been a really enjoyable week. Like, a lot of things have resolved or cleared up or moving in the right direction, which is great. And then I'll briefly share my screen.
Okay.
Actually, the setup at the end of the Thursday reading group was good. I'm gonna try to do that again because it's always a little weird, but for now, just share Notion here. Yeah. It has been an interesting and a good week. I do want to highlight there's some stuff from last week that we kind of didn't have time for. Just with a lot of stuff going on. There's a few things here to kind of go through again, which maybe we'll get to if we have time, whatever. But yeah, to go kind of week to week or like through since last time we had our meeting last week here. We had the Cognition Futures. We had the cybernetics. I keep thinking cyborg, but
yeah.
Cybernetic. And then another JoFR meeting. JoFR meetings aren't really scheduled right now to like a timing. It's just they're kind of contingent upon some stuff. But that's basically DSM related functionally. And we'll get to that later. But I think we should, and we have to go through this today. I really like to do that. By that I mean events and deadlines.
Oh yeah, yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, I need to check in with DevoWorm too. Okay. My general update. There's been I think the easiest way to say it is that the Cognition Futures Rating Group and centering the way we have on putting together the vision paper for the reading group or the project we're doing in sort of the methods project is great. And I don't have anything anything extremely cool to show for it. Oh, also, I'll mention this again. There's I did a little lab description that we can maybe look at later too.
Okay.
But where is the yeah, there's sort of I've been looking into like the nature of position papers. I found some examples of position papers that are kind of well, I haven't found a position paper. I have not found a position paper example of exactly what we're trying to do yet, which is fine. But I found other decent position papers that I can draw from, and kind of just getting the use of what, like, if it was to be published, which I don't particularly. This specific stage and this draft and this part of it, I'm not trying to just get this published, but I'm approaching it like it's something to that degree
Right.
of being buttoned up. But yes, I actually have. I don't have it. I don't have it linked here. I forget where it's linked. Um, but it's really nice to be centered on that. Like I woke up the next day thinking about it quite a bit. I woke up yesterday thinking about it quite a bit in terms of just okay, what are the things we want to do? And I find that it's really helping to shape things in other areas for me too, by saying okay, here's what this is happening in this branch. Because for me, there's a lot of relationship to. At least from my personal view, I'm not saying this is true for the lab and the people in it, but crystallizing some parts of the Contingent Futures methods project there is very related to this, and also many things in JoPro because of stuff going on there. Like Contingent Futures is sort of the first of a lot of other things I'd like to do, and I didn't know that when I started Contingent Futures. So sort of I'm back propagating a little bit of ideas and intentions and scoping, which is really cool. And like I've never, it's like I've said a few times here. There's an element of everything that's sort of your lab manager hat and your research coordinator hat, and then there's basically a strategic development, strategic initiatives hat. And I'm realizing there for the kind of stuff that some of this is getting at, not everything. I'm realizing a bit more about what that is and doing career shifting right now, but just looking at how different groups are kind of navigating that, or even job postings or calls for involvement, or the way sort of the weird divide between if you want to push something forward and if you're in an innovation space in academia, or you have a lab, or you have something, or a history, or whatever, or history as in you have establishment, or you're trying to build an established force, or dare I say tenure track, which is sort of a very strange. I really don't know how to refer to tenure track currently, but you kind of there's a lot of pipelines to just making a startup to push a project or an idea forward and make the startup do the thing. And there's a lot of time in and around that space over the last few years, and seeing, we talked about CES and other stuff. My feelings about that have really come a long way. So that's sort of a, I guess, side note. But yeah, I'm really happy, and it's hard to explain on a personal level about Contingent Futures, because basically it's this the path of that group has been very interesting and meaningful to me. And it's funny because there's not like a great number of outputs that like, oh, this is what this group has done, but it has accomplished and given me a very particular set of experiences in trying to manifest it, that I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I'm very appreciative of everybody's effort over the last year, especially, but even before that, because I was thinking like, who should we acknowledge in this paper? Like, it was back to Brian, it was back to other people, and a lot of people kind of did it out. Like those have all been part of it. So anyway, so that's sort of my. I think that was basically like a Hagrid moment for me about I feel good about this. So anyway, moving along. Thursday's Radio Group was pretty cool too, in the sense that I think having a home for this weird space of like cybernetics, Michael Levin's multifaceted work, and then like I think or assume at some point we're going to dive into some LogicCL stuff, math related, parts of it too when we're trying to sort out cybernetics and or maybe complexity science, and other system stuff there. So that's a nice space. And then JoPro's going really nicely in the sense of, I'll talk maybe a bit more about it later, time permitting, but Jen's enthusiasm and her own interest in the DSM, she's kind of approaching it from a general perspective, the large perspective, also someone who is considering doing social work perspective, and it's really fun. It's kind of like we're on this sort of either old school exploration or like the Dungeons and Dragons explore the ancient crypt thing, because there's so much weird murky stuff there, and its relationship to American thought development, and eventually we'd like to compare it to the ICD and its own history, which is more internationally based and like diagnosing diseases. And I think I found out one interesting little tip was like ICD originally came about for describing the cause of death, which is this sort of international attempt to demarcate things, and then it evolved into just disease. Talking about diseases, and I talked about what was it called? Nosological attempts, which is really fun to see an example of this. That's not like, I'm pretty versed in what happened in cognitive science relatively, but I'm not versed in the nosological attempts of like naming and taxonomy and trying to define terms and sort of the pre-paradigmatic state of what happened with the DSM and how that's different than neuroscience. Like I saw this article, I think it was from Eric P. Hole, who was talking about neuroscience is in its own pre-paradigmatic state and what he meant by that and so on. But it's been really interesting to do that, and comparing that to everything else. It's been great. So I don't know. I'm kind of, my mind's a bit slow this morning, so I'm not bringing that crisp. But it's been a really fun week, and I'm happy to talk about things more ahead. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Jesse. Just going over some of the things that are your feedback on some things, and I don't know. I'm not involved in the JoPro meeting, but I'm sure it went well. So
yeah, if they get to a set time, I will let you know. But it's super ad hoc right now, and I'm trying to just get some things off the ground with that and with Jen. But it's just reading. It's basically just reading some stuff for talking about it right now. But I'm hoping to make it more tenable to others.
Yeah. Okay. So Morgan, did you have any updates you'd like to share? Want to put them in the chat or? So I don't know if Morgan has any updates, but that's okay. I'm just getting started. So why don't Jesse? Why don't you bring back up the list of papers and things that we have? Okay, yeah, maybe later. List of papers and things, deadlines that we have, and we'll update them. Yeah.
If this is showing you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. A few things to add there myself. What's is this one still awaiting acceptance, or what's this one for the
Oh, this is this was published already. So
Okay,
this was for the 2023 proceedings. Yeah, this was. I don't have the link on me, but it was published like in December, I think, or November, late November. So we got that. That was.
Was this the one that was about Gibsonian information, or was this a different one?
This is a different one. This was on extended cognition and
Oh
things like
yes.
that. So that'll be
cool.
Yeah.
I think we're just here, which is great.
Yeah, published. Actually, awaiting acceptance. You can take that off because. Yeah, and actually, we've already submitted something for the 2024 proceedings, but that's, it's kind of like if you do the conference and then you get the opportunity to do something for the proceedings, and it's like the following year, basically, or I don't know if it's the following year. But anyways, yeah, so we probably gets published in the following year. So, yeah, that should be okay. Yeah, and then
what this one is.
That is something that's still being worked on. This was this paper. We'll call it molecular order for now. Molecular order of differentiation. If you'd like to put that on there. Yeah, and differentiation, and that's something that's being worked out, like being revised, and so it's definitely going to happen. It's going to be resubmitted. It's just a matter of knowing when to do it and when it's ready.
Do it like this.
Yeah. Something I've been working on over the break, actually.
Okay. It's funny because this is blank right now, and this is so misleading. And I know we're gonna fill this up because there's a lot of stuff happening now. But yeah.
Actually, the DevoWorm collaboration. Could you rename that DevoWorm? DevoWorm differentiation paper, or something like that. Yeah, there we go.
Is there a deadline for that we're working with, or just sort of?
No hard deadline. Just trying to get it out when we can, or as soon as we can. It's going to take a while, though. It's not quite there yet.
What about this one, the information preprint?
Yeah, so that one is still kind of almost ready to go. That was the one that I put in the Slack at the beginning of December, and still kind of sitting on it. I may want to add a little bit more about like things like resonance.
That was something that I think I was supposed to like look over too, right?
Yeah.
So.
But there's no deadline on it. If you can get a chance to look it over, that'd be great. And we'll probably talk about it a little bit more as well. So
I'll put that on my task list. Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. No deadline on that. Okay, cool. This is actually 2 weeks left for submissions for NICWIC. I'm going to actually do, I'm going to make this show an end date to here, because I don't think this is good. It actually might be extended one more time, but
yeah,
I'm not sure if it will. Sure, this is not showing up here either, but that's okay.
So what is the plan for that? You're not planning to do a smorgasbord type thing this year?
I'm really torn between. There's a lot of great things that could be talked about, and even like I could even I'm in a situation where I could present some actual like coursework and some like really low grade machine learning stuff that I did there that might be relevantly of interest. If I submit something, it may be along the lines of I mean, there's the general topics, there's all the society ethics tech stuff that we could talk about, but I'll just to put this very briefly. A potential thing that is on my mind is basically computer science. Like mentioning, like I could mention that I did a project for my like intro course on the AQ10, dealing with an AQ10 data set for like autism diagnosis, and saying, well, you know, here's this, but in this arena, what we're trying to do is X, Y, Z. It's actually interesting because see if I can find this person. I last night I unintentionally came across somebody interesting that I want to follow up more with, who is this guy. He's actually doing what I'm talking about. Robert Seymour, MEG and optically pumped MEG development with a focus on wearability in rural examples, brain connectivity, and autism spectrum disorder. So this person's doing a little more straight up neuroscience, and getting data from that. But I think if I did a project, it would be what I think there's kind of a 50% chance or less project there. I'm worried that the main reason I might not do it is because I don't know if a lot of my efforts for doing projects in the past were to be space making and to center a lot of other things that were going on and give people that were kind of on the fringes a place to do some or get some experience. And I just don't have that same kind of, I wouldn't say pressure, but incentive right now, in the sense that there isn't kind of this stuff ready to just be assembled and put in a package and done that way. And for an event, the point of NICWIC is to give people experience. And I just feel like if there is a need from the conference to make anything, I might check with them about that specifically the next week or so. But I just don't. I mean, I don't think it's you know, I don't think it's necessarily a. It's not necessary, and I want people to have that experience. If that makes sense. Well, it looks like we have Cris here.
Yeah. Hello.
Feel free to make the introduction. Welcome aboard. So yeah, I don't know. I could put something together, but I'm not really going to rush to do it. And if we really wanted to, we probably could. But I just feel like I'm not sure the same. I'm not sure. I think the space at the conference may be better suited for someone else because it's quite a small conference.
Yeah.
So unless we have unless it's something where I feel like a lot of people are going to benefit from it on our end, I'm hesitant to commit to it. So
yeah, I think that's fine if we don't, contribute this year. I think a good way to do it if we're doing it lab wide would be to like do a smorgasbord. That's been pretty successful. We've had like you say, space making ability to put people into different, give them an opportunity to address different topics, put them into different areas of potential, project growth and things like that. So that, if you want to do something yourself, it's fine. But yeah, it might be something you might want to reserve for other people.
Yeah, and as I've said this before, but I'm a co-organizer this year. More so than submissions, I think actually there may be volunteer opportunities, or even panel opportunities. It might be hard to do a virtual panel, but there are things like grad school, career, mentoring, how to use like maybe LinkedIn or social media that we could use volunteers, or at least there may be sort of opportunities to join those things. But maybe I think that might be a better. And people are particularly interested in that space, just reach out to me, because there's some needs that's going to be help make the experience good. For those who don't know, I should probably just do this. I don't think the website has been updated yet. No, we still have this sort of chair. Oh boy, I need to help change that. NICWIC is and this is probably the best. It's kind of a really it's about you could say it's an inclusivity conference, but it's for academic, social, professional growth of tech and women in New York, where there's very good. There's a range of like technical stuff. There's how to deal with being an academic, how to dealing with like academic conferences, how to act and operate in an academic world as someone it's tailored. It's made to be inviting towards specific minorities or underserved groups, but anybody can go there, anybody can present there. But it's really great community creating a really valuable experience. Because it's not just, it's sort of it's a conference with all the trappings of the conference and your ID bags and your events and the sessions and the speakers and the keynotes, but there's an underpinning of support for making sure people feel welcome and making sure people feel like they have a way to be in the space and contribute and see what's going on and see older people in the field and younger people in the field and what it's like. Give those examples and visibility and representation of that. So even if we don't have even if we're not doing paper submissions this year, if you're interested in that, reach out, because either directly helping with maybe one of the panels or doing online volunteering. Last year, I kind of recruited a couple of volunteers to do things with sort of their Slack or their discussion group. And it wasn't a heavy lift. It was kind of a very light lift, but it was still a useful thing to do. So, yeah, we'll keep that in mind as we go into other stuff. But I'll reach out if you're interested in that.
One thing about the Gibsonian information preprint, if you could name that a primer on Gibsonian information.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. There we go. So we know kind of what it is a little bit more. Thank you.
Yeah, I was hoping for that. I blanked on the title, the updated title entirely. Cool. Let me sort this out here. Okay, frontier map. This has been active for a long time now, I guess. Can I just clear this? No. This is still active, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I think I have a nice little I do this. Okay. This will show up in the active period, but this one doesn't. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, because last year. That's why. There we go. That might be a factor. There we go. This is still happening, and actually, I guess what I didn't say is that the movement on the condition features front is helping with this too. So it's still active. It's still in a draft state. Still alive. Momentum is being maintained even if progress is slow. So yeah. Any questions about that? I don't know. I can probably only answer so much. But
no, I mean, it's still ongoing, so.
It's still there. Post-Fuchs review condition futures method project. I think this might be getting subsumed. Oh, I forgot. There's a lot of like, I should probably just make this into a little blog post and incorporate a lot of it into the position paper.
Yeah, I think so.
Because this is the main thing is the position paper, which I'll go back and work at next, I guess.
And I think that was like, this is being subsumed into that, so.
Yeah. I'm going to make a note of that here.
So this is good, you know, having this sort of evolution of the different action items, because, you know, sometimes we kind of rethink things and kind of put them into a new box, which is fine as long as they get accomplished. That's the important thing.
Yeah. I think that would be, let's make this active again. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. And I'll just because we kind of got bumped, this was bumped up. Oh, it must be because of some setting or something that I have that keeps having this go back to last year. Oh, it's because of a setting for this. Because the timeline is here. That's why.
2020.
I have to adjust that. That's why I think it's going back to here. Yeah, I feel like this really has taken off basically this year. And I'll give it an end date of, I don't know, let's say the end of February, just for now. I'm not particularly beholden to that, but this is really fun in a nice shape. I don't know. We could maybe talk more about it more in depth later.
Yeah.
But administratively, it is active. It actually is active,
Yeah.
and draft. We're not preparing submission, but let's say it's a draft, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like you have a lot of notes there. The question is how to bring it together into something nice and neat.
Yeah, I have a actual Word document that I've started. There's not a lot there, a ton of parts of that outline, but yes. Here's a tentative outline that's incomplete and kind of fused with other stuff. I think I think one of my working titles for this is actually let me see if I can find it quickly here. Yeah, okay. A tentative working title is because you can see I just shifted stuff away from here, so this formatting doesn't even make sense. Yeah. One of the working titles I had was something like finding condition features of position paper or methodologies for granting studies on human experience. Something like that. I'm not really happy with that. I'm just playing around with different words and titles to move forward on that.
I'd make it a lot shorter, probably. But yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing about this is particularly set. And the Word document, which I'll share maybe towards the end of this weekend, is it just has everything you see here. It's a loose outline. So it's basically this stuff a little refined. But I actually am starting to doing the actual fleshing out work for that, which is fun. Yeah. Let's see. Frontier map. We talked about that. We talked about this. The ISPSM recap. I don't know if that's a thing or just an aspiration. As we get further and further away, I assume less and less is going to happen there. Although I would encourage Amanda to just or Bradley to just on their experiences too. But.
So yeah, what happened? So I guess Amanda presented. I don't know if did you present there or not. I can't remember.
No, I didn't present on that event when I was here.
So I guess the only other action item would be I don't know if they're doing a paper submission afterwards. I wasn't clear on that either. Is that something that you or Amanda are doing or?
I forget. Let's look at their website.
I mean, if not, it's fine. I think that we could probably just recycle the experience to something in Cognition Futures, but I don't want people, to have like a outline and then waste it by not doing anything with it.
Yeah, I don't get a sense that
there was a proceeding.
It wasn't like your submissions will be entered in the proceedings of XYZ. Yeah, I'm curious. I think there were some emails about this, and I wonder. I think Amanda would be able to speak more about it. So to be continued, I guess.
All right. There she is. Speaking of.
Hey Amanda, we were just thinking about we were just going over the ISPSM conference. I don't know if there's any was there like a let's submit our stuff to like submissions, or are they going to publish stuff in proceedings, or were they not even?
I don't think so.
I didn't because it's sort of a first time online thing. I didn't think they were doing it. So yeah. Okay, cool. Also, hi, if you want to do an intro or whatever, you can too.
No, I don't really have an update.
Okay.
I'm sure you talked about the reading groups.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because sometimes, some weeks, like, we meet, like, parts of our main group meet, like, every day for, like, 3 or 4 days in a row. It's like, hey, what's new? I was like, well, not this time. Get the Riker meme, not this time. All right. So I guess then, like, would it be of any value to try to write a small little blog recap post about ISPSM, or is it kind of not something we've seen doing?
Yeah, I think if that's something, and it'd probably be you and Amanda, because I didn't really get to see much of it. Just your impressions of it, or what you found interesting, or that's always good to kind of recap some of these events, just to give your perspective on it. And if it's it doesn't have to be really long. It just needs to be like, even if it's like tangential to the event. I know Jesse's familiar with the conference recaps from some of the stuff he's done. NICWIC recaps and things like that. So, I mean, I didn't really get to attend any of the sessions, so it might be useful to have like maybe focus on 1 or 2 talks even, and just say, this is something relevant to our project on X, probably on Cognition Futures, but also maybe cybernetics.
I only attended a couple. The keynote was good. I shared a little bit about that, but I don't know if unless things are recorded, I don't even know if I remember enough about that to like write a good enough blog post that could like accurately recap or give an impression of the conference. I really didn't make it to that much. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was tough because it was sort of like held in an inconvenient time for me anyway, outside of everything else too. So I'm curious. Okay. To be decided, but still in standby mode. The EI conference 2024. Deadlines are around February.
Are they?
What we wanted this year. Thoughts about that?
Do they have the website up yet, or?
Let's have a look. See, I'll just have this over here now.
Because I mean, I know it's going to sneak up on us, but usually they send out a reminder, or they tell us that its submissions are now open, but we could very easily miss it.
It's tough because they don't really necessarily have a. I don't think this is it.
I think this is 21, 23.
There's not really like a clearinghouse for. It's probably this website, if anything. Here we go. Nope.
That's 23. Yeah.
There's a who did they have is it a Twitter thing?
Well, I mean, we usually get emails from some of the organizers, which is useful.
Okay. I will look at my emails. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen anything. But yeah, we'll wait on this. But yeah, I mean, yeah, keep this in mind in terms of what we want to do. I mean, maybe a 4E type thing would be good for this. But also, you know, there's some other things that we can put in on this. So.
Trying to think who's been like. I can see my posts and Josh Barnes posts from 2021, 2022, and 2023. So that's cool. Okay, I guess I'll put on my list of follow up on. Okay. Still on standby. Let's. I'm gonna put a date of. No. Let me. I'm just putting this for myself. Just like sort this out. What's going on? Okay, learning on graphs, and we have a couple of event onlys. I don't know if we want to just take them off the list or something.
Yeah, so learning on graphs is completed. I might write a blog post on that, but the videos are on YouTube, so that's not like. I might just point to the videos and things. Yeah, it's. But we'll keep that open for now. Let me make a note of it. I definitely want to have something on that.
Okay. NeuroIPS is kind of the same thing. There were a few things I highlighted. I didn't get to look at any of it. This was like, oh my god, like December 15th.
Yeah.
I have like trauma around the date in the sense of like just everything that's going on for me then, including like finals and life stuff. So I completely missed everything about that. I've heard great things and saw some posts, but I didn't see any. And this is the least I've paid in your IPS in like 4 or 5 years. So it'd be great if someone wants to do a review of that, especially when people are watching that aren't in the lab. I would do like a call for proposal or call for involvement.
Yeah.
That would be pretty legit, I think. But otherwise, I don't have anything to say about it.
Pushing the boundaries.
This one we talked about quite a bit, but I don't think we've done a lot with it.
Okay.
This was the Friston, and I think
right.
Levin was here or something too at some point.
So is this something that was recorded? I can't remember.
I believe so. Let me do this. I think it's there's at least there's oh I think in somewhere I think there are videos somewhere.
Okay. Well, we can also maybe review those. Maybe even in the Cognition Futures meeting might make sense. But yeah, let's revisit that.
I know there's some websites and stuff, but and a few things pop up with this too.
Yeah, there it is. Or I can.
The fact that it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they're going to be here. Okay. Yeah. Here they are. Okay. It is this one. Right. So.
Yeah. Very nondescript YouTube channel.
What was that about YouTube channel?
Very nondescript name for the YouTube channel. We're a department in LSC.
All right. Web building course. I think I'm going to apply to this weekend, perhaps. It's on my list. I guess it's technically like a hackathon, but it's an event. I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, but if anybody's interested in it, you can reach out to me, I guess. It's lofty big picture thinking stuff. But I was kind of turn on them because some of the things, like I saw Logan Thrasher Collins was talking at the world building course. I was talking at the Foresight Institute about other stuff before and found something that way, so I might try to do that, time permitting.
Yeah. If we want to add in hackathons in that, I know that Hussein put a link into another hackathon event that was being hosted. There are a couple of things we can maybe go through the events page on or the events channel in Slack and add those.
Oh yeah, he will be at the which I think is in a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, that too.
Sign that to Hussein. He goes again. He's not in here. Weird. Cool. So separation here. Yeah. Okay. So these are some old things. I guess we'll just go through this for now. These are some old things. Like this is actually this DSM project HQ probably shouldn't actually be on this list, or at least I kind of renamed this. This is basically now. This is more just an administrative post, but what this actually would be, I guess, should be where did it go? This. I'm going to have to move the structure of this one. Hold on a second. No, it's here. I wonder why it's not showing up here. Anyway, that's fine. I'll deal with that later. For this stuff, I mean, this has kind of been subsumed by some other things, so I'm not sure if we want to send it off to the pasture or what about this task.
Yeah, I think that's kind of maybe we'll keep that as sort of a meta thing. I kind of have been working on it, but also not. Like, it's like one of those things you say, describe the agenda, and it's like, well, it's still kind of evolving, and so yeah, I'll just keep this up. I mean, I have some things that I've worked out, like in terms of descriptions. We've had that in like for the 9-month update for last year. I put some things, but that wasn't like a full. It describes the agenda then in sort of a very small way, but it probably needs more work. And definitely as we move forward, it needs to keep dynamic. So I guess what I would say is like keep this open, but maybe like maybe call it continual refinement of the DevAI agenda. Because I think, as I said, this is just merely a working title in our group. We don't usually talk about developmental AI outside the group. If we publish something, it's something else. So,
Right.
Actually, we did for the first EI workshop, I did like a developmental AI roadmap, but that was just kind of a name that I gave it.
Okay, it was 2021.
Yeah, 2021. And those are on the YouTube channel, so that's like it's dated, but it's also kind of a definition at the time of how this perspective is being developed. So
this is something that came up from we had a discussion. I think it's in November.
Oh yeah,
or December about this, and obviously things really happened. We do have this sort of recap. We have the year-end stuff, or the 9-month stuff, but then I think the idea here was to kind of have some general things. What has happened? This, yeah. Like this blog post that I've made has kind of taken some of the energy from that. But it's not the same thing as these things, and I don't know how we're feeling about this. I think there's like make a bunch of flash talks videos about all this stuff going on. So I don't know how we are with that.
Well, we did this in 2022, sort of in conjunction with the open house. And in 2023, we had the 9-month update, the blog post. And then every year I'm tasked with doing an update for DevoWorm to the OpenWorm Foundation. So that's, that was actually posted as part of this open house series. And then I actually did a different set of videos over the break. So I didn't really do any recaps of the projects for 2023. I didn't think it was necessary because we already did the 9-month video. We could go through the blog post, but I don't know, maybe it's a little late for a recap of 2023. Maybe not. But I think, just doing like, don't worry about the calendar. Just do like continual, maybe like a update on a project. And we could just do it at any point where we feel like there's something to recap. Like, if we want to do something retrospective on cognition futures or prospective on like cybernetics or something like that. Prospective means that, we kind of make what we, set up what we want to do so that if people come to the project or interested in the project, they can watch the video and it's like 10 minutes and they get a good idea of what's going on.
I think, yeah. And it's a weird mix between sorting out, like I can see a version of this that's quite reduced but very general, like just something that would flesh out the what is this place, like something that would basically be a talking high level overview of this. Because I talk about I talk a little bit about like what we're doing and how we're different or whatever, and a little bit of the bigger ideas. But I feel like I think there's a way to it's sort of the difference between, do we want an accurate recording of the stuff that's happening currently, or do we want a less precise, more general, higher level overview of big themes that are going on? That's kind of the decision that I see about it.
Yeah, I think both are useful. I think the big themes are more timeless. Like when
Right.
you do the recording of what's happening right now, that's only useful for a little while, and then it's like, well, things change, or it seems dated very quickly. And so I think like the big, even if it's like a perspective view, it helps, and it's something you might probably stick to anyways, because we're reinforcing it with other materials like outlines and things, and then so that makes it like, you've set it on video, so it keeps you on task. But also, it helps you to kind of not, just say, I'm really interested in this week. But next week I'll probably be interested in something else. So it keeps you from doing that. Yeah, like I said, if you have like an update of your activities for the past year or the activities of a group, that's fine. But it doesn't have to be kind of at the end of the year. I think I should do more of that though, because I think we have a lot of like kind of hidden projects or hidden things that we're doing. So
yeah, oh yeah, and stuff that's like cursory that we don't talk about all the time, and people. I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to step away, not right now, but like in a few minutes. I need to just step away for like 5 minutes to handle something.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we finish this up? I think we've spent enough time on it.
I think basically new direction in psychiatry, cybernetics reading group direction, and this mid health tech space. Like we've had a meeting with Morgan about this, and I'm actually, I think, I didn't record a lot here in this space, but we had a really good meeting about that. I think there's something to cook up there. Cybernetics reading group. There's been a lot of talk about that, so putting that into some write-up stuff is something to do also. For a little formalization, a little manifesto, a little whatever. And then this one too is so interesting to me. I haven't done anything specifically with it, but it's definitely on the docket of like incubation stage things for me. So
okay.
I don't know if we want to say anything about these individually.
Well, not right now. I mean, definitely I don't know if Morgan has anything to say about it, or Amanda, but I don't necessarily. I mean, we just keep going on it.
We can talk about those things, but I'm going to step away for like just a minute or so.
Okay. All right. So I have a couple things to share. Morgan wanted to say something, I guess. Okay.
No, just yeah. I mean, I've been following along with the papers and conferences and things like that, and I just wanted to say that I do know the Cris that joined now.
Okay.
He just messaged me, and so that's Cris in Berlin. So
okay.
He's the one interested in the in putting together the meeting on simulation tools. Or like we thought that would be a good first step. Depending on where he is with contacts at like Max Delbruck Center, which is big molecular biology biophysics lab in Berlin, but yeah. No, he absolutely. So but it also is. It would be good to revisit that difficult question of what does the lab do?
Right.
Yeah. How do you? What's a pithy way of centering people? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but he would like to come back and introduce himself. And let's see. I'm just trying to think in terms of any meetings this week that I mean the USC ISI meeting was interesting. Yeah. So that was the developmental psychologist that speaking who had been brought on by DARPA to evaluate the what did they call it? I forget what the M is, but like something like mastering common sense or something like that. DARPA project. So and they have as their emblem a robot on a tree branch that's sawing the tree branch, and so the will the robot realize that this is going to end poorly before it finishes sawing the branch? It was interesting. I mean, it was like a review of a lot of developmental psych that would be familiar to anybody, but trying to then add that to a gazebo simulation environment.
yeah.
So adding things that some of it's really simple, like adding occluding objects so that you could then test like object permanence and things like that. Adding holes, steep cliffs so that people wouldn't, or robots wouldn't fall down in the sense of what's the I forget what the psychologists call that, but they create the plexiglass table that has the cliff.
Oh, right.
The
And
babies,
then
and it's like at a
it.
certain month they stop. Even though it's a solid plane,
Yeah.
they see the drop, so they figuring out gravity.
Right.
Is what and then a floor made of lava, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
But they don't. Yeah. Now whether to meaningfully get these kinds of this kind of, maybe the M was meaningful common sense. I forget now.
Oh, okay.
But it's in the. I dropped it in the. I think the Dev AI Slack.
Right.
Yeah. But now whether you actually get that kind of meaningful common sense without playing lava, kids will, just, like my kid, certainly my daughter's of the age where it's, the kids will be playing on the sofa and they're like, no, I can't get off the sofa. The floor is lava.
Right.
There's a whole host of other developmental activities that that they're not kind of trying to probe that could be just as meaningful to getting this kind of developmental intelligence that is not covered. And anyway, that was certainly the meeting that I had I was intrigued to see what they would do. I've seen other DARPA challenges in terms of sub-T and I've seen other DARPA robotic challenges, and they've they've been very, in some regards, standard in the sense of, just figuring out a path in a tunnel, figuring out how to accommodate your body form for particular obstacles and things like that. Anyway, it's a difficult challenge, but I liked at least the discussion around the issues, and the Biopunk Society did get their grant together. I don't think it got in for the informal STEM learning, but it was definitely one of those proposals where it will serve them well for anything, because it was very much a description of exactly what they are doing. So that was still great to see that come together so quickly. Let me well, I don't know if there's time to look at any of the Slack channels, but the Lean Together meeting, which is the Lean Theorem Prover. This is pretty sure it started as a Microsoft research project. I'm blanking on the I don't know if that's Kevin Buzzard. That's not right. But I feel like there was definitely somebody else at Microsoft Research. But anyway, I thought, thinking a little bit about the Adam Saffron and others, not just his RFP, but about foundation models and their limitations, or their well, you remember. So that was kind of interesting to see. There were several applications outside of what I would consider typical theorem proving. And I think I dropped one in terms of looking at convex optimization with Lean, which was interesting.
Yeah, to take a look at that.
And there's definitely some other interesting some interesting links for those inclined. But I think George Mashur was on Star Talk. This is the talking about consciousness. And
oh yeah, I saw that. I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, that was very fun.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I might go through one of the Slack channels, but so this the stuff on common sense, you're talking about, like how they were using developmental science to look at like some of these things that you acquire in development, like finding object cues or depth cues or object permanence, things like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking
definitely what they were trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking of the parallels between that and like how people interact with things in VR. So like there are these experiments where they have people in VR where they put them in a world where they simulate something like lava on the floor or like a hole in the floor, and like the hole doesn't exist. It's just kind of like you can walk over, but you see the visual cue. And then some people just try to avoid the hole. If they see it there, they move around, even though they know that they're in a virtual world. They just have this aversion to walking over things like that. So it's kind of interesting how this, how you acquire this in the real world, but then in virtual worlds, you might, we don't really know how people actually interact with these things if they look real enough. So it's kind of an interesting kind of parallel there. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. So.
Yeah. I mean that's certainly interesting, and especially for, again, like putting people into situations that would be hard to create naturally around them, right? and then seeing how they behave.
Yeah.
In this case, that they're really, I mean, this is literally like the how to build a baby,
Right.
and as I'm glad DARPA did it.
Well, yeah.
But it still feels relatively forced, or like I still don't see it's not the same at all, but it's still a little like running theory of mind things on. It's not at all the same. That it still seems forced. It still seems like you're at some point you're trying to hard code some rule.
Right. Yeah.
And I think he didn't. He went over time and he felt like he had to wrap up. But I think at the end he was maybe trying to say something like this, in the sense that he said, he didn't want a nativist account, or he didn't think that a nativist. See if I can say this right, but yeah, this should still somehow come out of the system's own experience, and I think there's still one more thing. And just listening to is it Robert Sapolsky, who's the person doing tours right now, saying there's no such thing as free will.
Yeah.
But this is somebody who works with non-human primates, or at least a lot of his research work comes out of that, right? And just thinking about some of the experiments that, again, we would get exposed to in kind of almost like intro psych, right? In terms of development, and like these robots aren't, if you put them in with a wire figure mother versus a wire figure that's covered in terry cloth, right? The robot's not going to have any different interaction, there's nothing internal that's going to drive that to prefer one versus the other. You know what I mean? Like there's still something remarkably unnatural about this, and remarkably kind of forced. Anyway.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well, yeah, a lot of times you see developmental techniques in AI, and like they tend to be like maybe they'll kind of call learning development. Like if you say, how do you implement development? Well, if the AI acquires information, well, that's learning. That's not really development. Or we still don't really have a good sense of like how to get the system to learn something from no priors or no sort of the I don't know how else to describe it, but it's not the same as like just mere acquisition. There's something else there that we want to be able to model.
Yeah. I mean, I almost think, like, instead of, well, again, I get why they want these things, right? Like having the robot figure out that, like, I can't cut this tree branch,
right?
Like that makes sense. But in terms of adding development, something perhaps more like Carmel F. Smith, like in this, with the representational redescription, in the sense that, like, can you show a machine system that goes through these periods of getting worse at tasks because their representations have to have to be I don't know, maybe like some sort of multimodal learning or something like that, like where you need some sort of redescription of your representations so that the representations can now have some synergy or again, like it doesn't address the kind of, you know, baby behavior that we, you know, and that explicitly was the DARPA project. Like, you know, like what are babies, 1-year-olds good at that robots aren't?
Yeah.
And, you know, so it was that kind of, you know, knowing object permanence and things like that they were trying to get.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we've still got a ways to go in terms of getting, you know, again, like, you know, that the U-shaped behavior with past tense verbs is the, you know, is the standard one that you learn in intro psych. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, it's just, you know, he did mention that you know, an airplane looks a lot different than a bird. Right. So, you know, that there is an acknowledgement that a machine system is not necessarily going to look like a natural system or a natural agent. But again, it's the question with development. You know, when we talk about dev AI, you know, what do we mean, and what are we trying to what are we trying to grow? The representational redescription seems like something, at least in you know, in units that make sense.
Yeah, I think that's good. And yeah, you actually want to like recapitulate the thing that you're interested in. You don't want to just say development is this thing I'm sort of redefining acquisition or learning, and that's development, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, it's tough. It's a tough problem. Yeah.
It is. I mean, it is really a tough. It is a tough problem. And that's why, isn't there a paper called like How to Build a Baby or How to Build a Brain, or both?
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like something someone would write, yeah.
Somebody would write. Yeah.
But yeah, okay, yeah, thanks for that. That's great. But yeah, we want to move on to like some things here, and we'll talk about one of the Slack channels. So, you know. Yeah, Jesse posted the Adam Saffron call for participation. That's the paper. Actually, this is something that let me share my screen. This is something we talked about, I think, at Wednesday's meeting. I don't know if we talked about it last week here. So anyways, we'll go over this because I'm going to talk about this. So this is this paper, the special issue of Royal Society Philosophical Transactions. This is this paper, or the special issue World Models, AGI, and the Hard Problems of Life-Mind Continuity. And so this is just like a paper, you know, if you want to submit a paper to this, the focus should be sort of on world modeling. And then, you know, that kind of incorporates a lot of things. It's basically a response to a lot of the large language models and, you know, how they represent the world. And he talks about what kinds of cognitive capacities do we want to engineer for what they call System 2 AI, which is this system, different types of systems of AI with respect to creating systems capable of the kinds of sophisticated, potentially self-reflexive and deliberate, complex, multi-step reasoning process associated with seemingly uniquely forms of human intelligence. So again, they have that human intelligence focus. I don't know if I agree with this aspect. Like, you know, maybe we don't really want to focus on human intelligence if we're talking about general intelligence, but I know that's what we're familiar with. But it has even been proposed that the integrated modeling of spatiotemporally and causally coherent system world configurations, which is where the system as a model of the world, may provide not only bases for expanding machine autonomy, but also means of understanding phenomenal consciousness as a stream of experience. So this is where they kind of bump up to phenomenal consciousness, which, I think we have to really kind of make sure what we know when we, know what we're talking about when we say that. But definitely, I think there's some themes in here, right? There's, learning to learn, which is this developmental perspective. There's the stream of experience, which suggests some sort of naturalistic approach. So, you don't want to think about this in terms necessarily of discrete data points or, parts of a data set that you're learning, so like a set of images or something. I mean, that's what you would maybe train your model on. But the idea would be to model that as a stream of experience, maybe some temporal depth to that, and then, use that as the basis for the experience of the AI, and then it can build on that. So that's the kind of stuff that, maybe we need to think about. Now, I outlined this, we talked about this last week, and I did outline some of this, some of our discussions, some of our other things that we're talking about here. So this is our sort of, I don't have a title yet. I just kind of put this is sort of for the special issue world models, AGI and intelligence. This is the four of us in the meeting here. And so, so the first thing we would maybe talk about in this paper would be the Evergood regulator theorem. So like kind of going through the Evergood regulator theorem, or maybe like a world model in terms of the Evergood regulator theorem. So we did a paper, I did a paper on this with Rob Stone, who's been involved in the lab in the past. And his interest was in the Evergood regulator theorem, and particularly, he's still interested in it. And in particular, the sort of the proof, there's a whole proof. There's a paper from like 1970 where, this is sort of an old school cybernetics paper where they go through this idea of the Evergood regulator theorem, where you have a model of a system that regulates the system. So the definition of a good regulator is a good regulator of a system is a model of that system. Okay, so that's a sort of the idea. So like, for example, if you wanted to have a self-driving car, that self-driving car would have to have a good model of the world that it's in, and it would have to have a good model of the driver, driving, like controlling the steering wheel. And it would have to have a good model of, things that are unexpected. So things that you wouldn't necessarily expect at chance, like obstacles or driving conditions that are outside of the norm. So this is basically a description of the system. But what is the system? Can we really have a good model of it? And so, this is kind of what is good regulation. We know it when we see it. That's kind of the idea. And that's not really good enough for maybe something like AI. I think a better way to think about that is like, think about it the way I just described it, as this, world model, which of course is what they're angling for in the special issue. But to think about it also in terms of these aspects of, out of distribution things, or, how much complexity do you really need to have control? So we don't really know any of these things from the Evergood regulator theorem. We just know that there's this sort of semi-rigorous definition of a good model. And so then, I kind of bring some things that we talked about later about this. So does the model need to be hyper-realistic? Does it need to be an exact replica of, say, the environment, with maybe some variance in there to account for things that don't necessarily happen all the time, but maybe happen some of the time? Or, does it need to be isomorphic? And that means that it needs to replicate the same or a similar number of states that you see in the system. So with driving, you might have different types of weather conditions, and your model might have to include those different types of weather conditions. Or, you might have to replicate certain physics, like driving on an icy road versus driving on mountainous, a mountain pass where you have to make a lot of curves. So you have to replicate those physics states. or emotional states of the driver, which we don't think of with respect to like a self-driving car, but other drivers have emotional states. So you need to be able to identify those. Do we need to have all those states in the model, or can we just do with like a minimal number of states? So that's something, what I mean by isomorphic here. And then what does a good regulator look like? So, you can talk about poor regulation, but, poor regulation, which is this sort of mismatched regulation, can have both negative and positive attributes. So that, maybe poor regulation isn't always a bad thing, but it's something to think about. What is a world model from the good regulator perspective? And then we talked about embodied systems. So world models probably should be embodied, but, how do we define embodied, and how do these differ from just regular models of the environment? We might also bring in some second order cybernetics and the role of observers. So, if we have a model where we have sort of explicitly modeled the observer of the world, can we improve upon the Evergood regulator theorem? And then we have this point about the data camera, which is where we have intelligence is not just the data camera, but we can talk about how to sort of fit that into the into the Evergood regulator theorem. So, what we say when we say Evergood regulator or good regulation means that intelligence isn't just a data camera. It doesn't just regurgitate the training set. It needs some sort of extra additional way of modeling some of these states and some of the outcomes. And so, that's something we can develop more. And then, how limiting is the world model that you've chosen? So this is where, we get into this out of distribution literature, which is big in machine learning, where, you train a model and you have these very rare things that you can't necessarily incorporate into the training model in the way that they exist in the world. The world always presents new information. So like we just talked about, sometimes that's developmental. If you're a baby and you see things you've not seen before, you have to figure out not just what it is, but like the world physics and things like that, and the relational categories. So these are things that have not been categorized by intelligence. We talked about things like the Boba and Kiki examples, where you have to take objects and classify them, but you don't know what they are a priori, so you have to kind of figure out things as you go. And so is that included in the Evergood regulator model or not? Is that something that we can include in our world models? And then this is a point that Morgan made. Can a model develop super biological categorizations or superhuman categorizations? Just meaning that, like, we talk about making AI more like a biological system, but there are things that AI can do that are better than a biological system. And so that's kind of, can a model, maybe that's not the right way to put it, but can a model develop super biological categorizations? Is this comparable to biological intelligence, or just an artifact of capacity? And maybe this point is maybe better served by saying, like, there's certain things that machines can do really well, some things that biological systems can do really well. And there's this kind of balance that we can make, and is it, maybe we don't want to necessarily emulate biology at every step. Maybe we want to like lean on what the machines do really well. So that this is, these are all open points. And, I just wanted to outline what we've been talking about. It still needs a lot of work, but I think by March 1st, we just need an abstract. But we have to get these points kind of nailed down, because, the abstract is really going to rely on refining some of these points. So I put that together for the group. I don't know. I can share the document and we can make comments, or we can kind of work on it in the meetings here week by week and kind of get it in shape.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. Thank you for taking good notes.
Okay, yeah.
and fleshing them out. It does make me want to. One, I really want to go back and look at the Francois Chalet ARC paper, and I'm pretty sure ARC stands for something, but I can't remember what off the top of my head. But his set of tasks that are, in some ways simple and definitely not LLM solvable. And he's got some funny insider comments on LLMs. Just I saw recently on Twitter. He's like, if he can, because he can remember, like DeepMind opening in 2010 and like what the AGI is 5 years away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Automated intelligence.
I believe so. Yeah, it's sorry, it's just take my
on the measure of intelligence.
Yeah. I think yes. ARC is the abstraction and reasoning corpus.
Oh, okay.
Is down there. Yeah. Not exactly sure. I mean, it would be good to certainly, again, just from that discussion, I forget where the speaker was from. I'm saying the USC meeting, but the speaker was from somewhere else. The difficulty of defining intelligence,
right?
And Shelley talks about it there, but also the again, just thinking of the role of play, in developmental psychology, and we try, some people who are now like at OpenAI, like Jeff Clune and Kenneth Stanley, trying to kind of give an operational definition of curiosity, and as well as Danny Bassett's book and their twin is a different name. I'm blanking, but again, it would be good to see if there's anything there in terms of in some sense the limitations of these definitions, and certainly like where world models are to some degree.
So I think that's great, and I think the idea from this ARC paper talks about appropriate feedback signals, and that's sort of what we're talking about with EGRT. We have like the regulator, and we have something that goes to the regulator, like a signal from the environment. But then that's the feedback. So the model has to act on the world, and then the world gives a response, I guess, if it's correct or not. And so do we have the appropriate feedback signal in the first place from the world? Or do we have the appropriate feed-forward signal from the model? If the model is just saying that the world is like black and white, and it just makes like a single binary signal that doesn't necessarily have any use in a complex world. So, and vice versa, if the feedback is binary or the feedback is really complex and the model can't interpret it, then it makes it pretty hard to regulate.
And I mean, I wonder how appropriate it would be to talk about kind of having multiple world models, and certainly with task or context or something. Again, I'm sorry, I just keep on trying to bring imagination in.
Oh yeah. Well, I think
again, it was partly because the trying to see if the world model could do science, right? Like to just discover new things,
and again, just thinking about the thought experiments that have revealed problems and or opened up new ways of envisioning the world that have been revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about multiple world models, and that, like, we kind of assume that in a lot of ways, I think people assume that say if we see the world, we have a representational world. Maybe it's a single representation, and then we use that for different cognitive subsystems. But I mean, I guess we could think of our brains as maybe having multiple representations of the same thing. Maybe one that's an emotional representation, one that's maybe like an attentional representation, and so forth. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get into representations too much because that's like a loaded topic. But I think about if you had multiple models like that, and it may make sense to have that if you want good regulation. So it's just things to consider. And I don't know what the state of the art in AI research is in terms of thinking about models. I mean, I know that we use a single model and we train it, and then we use that model. It's like a super model, and it might have modules to it. But just thinking about using an ensemble, an ensemble approach where you had a bunch of models that all kind of had different types of representations, and then it acted on the world, and there was feedback, and then you just basically found an average or some sort of summary of all these models, and what are they predicting? That might be an interesting. I don't know if people are using ensembles very much in at least I'm sure somewhere people are using it, but I don't know what the state of the art is in that area.
Yeah. It's I would definitely like to do some background, spend some more time with the RFB.
Yeah.
But I think it would be great, or I certainly hope we move forward with that.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely worth thinking about, and seems to be a great use of the. I mean, wouldn't you say, Jesse? This would be a great use of kind of honing what you've been talking about in terms of the work and cognition futures.
Yeah, I think it's partly why I kept mentioning. I think you're referring to the CFPs. Yeah, I think. I mean, it's a good thing to aim towards. I feel like, I mean, it's a really cool group of people, and Adam's chairing it, and I respect Adam and the work that he's doing. I don't think it's a perfect match for some of the things, and but I think it's it's hard to find a better playground, to push some of those things into a context. I don't know if world building is my preferred context for a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to do, but it's a good one that we can, do some things in, and Bradley's really, taking notes on that. And I think one question for us about this is going to basically be, what do we want to how many things do we want to submit to this, and how many different actual conceptual ideas are there? Because I'm sure when I was seeing the whole thing about second order cybernetics, that could be its whole thing, there could be a, okay, well, what second order cybernetics / observer dependent / role of observer / this boundary talk, or that whole thing could be its own submission, probably. Do I want to do that? Do I want to raise my hand and say that's what I'm going to do? I'll spearhead this one. You guys spearhead that one. No, I'm not ready to do that yet. It may be best to tuck it in to the other one, but we have a little bit of time to sort that out. But I think that'll come up next Wednesday, and also, maybe even also with the cybernetics reading group specifically too. Like I'm really curious. It's a really interesting to step back for 1 second. It's a really interesting moment because there's an exciting amount of overlap, and it's tough because I think for people who are outside the lab, they don't see it. But there's a really interesting amount of overlap between Prediction Futures, the cybernetics reading group, stuff we're talking about here. We've kind of been in these same discussions. It's sort of like you have in the popular sense, you have like your D&D party of like Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever, and like we've been in this party and exploring these different dungeons and kind of know, okay, here's kind of what's going on, and the intra-group contextual referencing for these topics is really exciting. So yeah, I think to that end, I think we should totally take a swing or two at Adam Safran's opportunity that we're being presented with, and I think it's kind of just a matter of like what things. I think Bradley's doing or trying to do or doing and trying to go in direction. A lot of big ideas, if you will, in the lab sense, but concepts in the labs that we've been talking about. It's like what is going to fit, and I think that every good regulator is a really nice reference point and a way to filter a lot of our sort of pent up stuff in that space, from cybernetics all the way back to the EGRT stuff. It's like the first thing I worked on in the lab, and maybe I think that's a good place to start. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we'll revisit this as we go along. Now I wanted to turn to the Slack. I just want to give a little bit of, maybe some of the other channels. I think all we have time for today is the bioevolution stuff, which we haven't talked about in a while. So this is, we've got some nice posts in here on, this news story in bacteria store memories and pass them on for generations. This is on a new drug extending the lifespan of giant dog breeds. Let's see what else. This is a special issue of Development Journal on metabolism and development. So this is metabolic and nutritional controlled development and regeneration. This is interesting with respect to DevoWorm, but also some of the stuff we've talked about with respect to, metabolism and things like that. A lot of things on, this is in hardcore developmental biology. So this but it has a lot of relevance to feedback and control and some things in cybernetics as well. Is a good system to look at that sort of set of relationships. So there are a lot of papers here. If you're interested, go to that link. We have some other articles here. This is talk by Nick Lane, who is written a number of books. He's talking about the electrical origins of life. So he's written a number of books on the origins of life and sort of the biochemistry of that. And this is, of course, on sort of bioelectricity, I guess, as well. So he talks about the Krebs cycle and some of the very early bioelectric aspects. So that's a good talk to look at.
It also sets up what he says is going to be his new direction of research, which is consciousness.
Oh, okay.
And I think it relates to kind of some of the things that we've talked about in terms of anesthesia.
Oh, okay.
What's happening there? Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. This is a article on Cell. This is nice. This is cool. This is a tridimensional atlas of the developing human head. So this is something that people are doing a lot of high resolution imaging And so they're doing a lot of really cool stuff here. They're getting a sample of human embryos that they're imaging, doing some tissue clearing, doing lead sheet microscopy. So they're taking samples. They're, acquiring stacks of images from a microscope. And so light sheet is just a high resolution type of microscopy where you can get these type of images. You take this image stack and you can actually build a mesh reconstruction, which is taking these two-dimensional images that slice through the tissue, or at least, you have different focal planes in the tissue. You can then take that and use that as three-dimensional information to build this mesh, which allows you to reconstruct different things like, blood vessels and other things in the volume. And then you can furthermore do what they call VR segmentation, which is you can examine these parts of the volume with VR. So they have a VR headset here, and it's basically just taking, rendering something in 3 dimensions and then having like ways to pull out pieces and examine the close-up. So that's what they're doing here. They're basically segmenting parts of the 3D model and getting, so you can examine it up close. Then they have this online data portal, an interactive atlas. And there's a site, hudeca.com, HUDECA.com. That's their sort of online portal for the data. It's a French group that's doing this. And so they have this online data portal. And then they can also do 3D printed models, which basically once you have this mesh reconstruction and this 3D model, you can then specify, have specifications for 3D printing. So you can actually print out the models and examine it, hold it in your hands and examine it. So that's a lot of stuff that they've kind of put around this. But the core is this data set of this sort of developmental data set. So they have a lot of information on, precursor cells, stem cells, emerging tissues, other types of things. And you have these, once you have these kind of models, the hope is that you can discover new things by examining it in these different ways. So it's a nice article to look into if you're interested in this sort of imaging and data acquisition. This is a paper here, Illuminating Protein Space with a Programmable Generative Model. So this is a computational biology project here. This is where they talk about how, evolution has produced a tremendous diversity of protein molecules, but the full potential of proteins is likely to be much greater. So there are all these different types of variants of protein molecules, but there are also these functional states, these conformational states, which allow proteins to do a lot of different things. So there's this vast space of proteins that we have in the world. Assessing this potential has been challenging for both computation and experiments because the space of possible protein molecules is much larger than the space of those likely to have functions. So, we've heard a lot about AI being able to do a very good job at predicting folding. And so people have been looking at protein folding for years using supercomputers. And that prediction really requires a supercomputer because you need to model the physics, you need to model sort of that conformational space. And it's almost impossible to do without a lot of computation. And so AIs have been able to do this quite effectively. Well, one thing they haven't really been able to do is assess sort of the protein space or the protein conformational space, but with respect to taking into account function. So this is something that we need to kind of also take into account because there are a lot of protein conformations that don't really have functions. And as we might imagine, when you have a very large space of possibilities, not all those possibilities are, relevant. Here we introduce Chroma, a generative model for proteins and protein complexes. So they're using a generative AI model, basically, to analyze this protein space that can directly sample novel protein structures and sequences. So we have, we can actually sample these, and then that it can be conditioned to steer the generative process towards desired properties and functions. So basically it samples that space, and then it generates possible things if you give it like a desired function or a desired set of properties, it can model something from being trained on that space. So it's a very different approach to understanding proteins than protein folding. As protein folding, you're just trying to predict how a protein might fold into a certain configuration. In this case, you give it some information about the potential functions. So you say it has to, dock on this receptor or something, or it has to have this sort of energy minimization, and then it will generate the possible proteins. And so it's a very different approach, but it's, maybe it cuts through this very vast possibility space. To enable this, we introduce a diffusion process that respects the conformational statistics of polymer ensembles. So we want to be sort of, follow sort of the least energy, sort of the statistical mechanics of this. So we want to have that. An official neural architecture for molecular systems that enables long-range reasoning with subquadratic scaling. So it just has to be a AI model that understands sort of the rules of molecular systems. And so they have all these things. And it also has to sort of model the biophysics of it. Chroma achieves protein design as Bayesian inference under external constraints, which can involve symmetries, substructure, shape, semantics, and even natural language prompts. So you can prompt the model. So, we've been doing some of this in DevoWorm with, we've been working with the segment anything model. And we have a version of this called Cell Census, which is a fork of someone's work on this, where they've applied the segment anything model to cell microscopy. And so, there are ways you can do bounding box queries of the data. So you can actually train the model and then draw a bounding box, and it'll find the cell shape within that bounding box. Or you can actually use a natural language prompt if you label your data, and it can come up with the information that way. So this is a trend in applying machine learning to microscopy, and that we want to create these natural language prompts. We want to be able to label our data. If we have labeled data, we can use these natural language prompts. And it's much better than trying to infer something from a bounding box. Because if we have the right characterization of something, and it's key that we have the right characterization of what that label is. So if we say it's a cell, it's nice to have a good set of shapes for a cell. But of course it falls down when you say, a cell, and then you have a lot of different cell shapes. And so it really has problems trying to find the right cell. But, sometimes some cells have distinctive shapes. So but anyways, that's my view of natural language prompts. It's an emerging area, but it's quite useful. The experimental characterization of 310 proteins shows that sampling from chroma, from the model, results in proteins that are highly expressed, fold, and have favorable biophysical properties. So basically their model is generating useful information. So with this unified approach to protein design, we hope to accelerate the programming of protein matter to benefit human health, materials science, and synthetic biology. So this is definitely a new and interesting direction in this type of research. So thank you, Morgan, for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, and I dropped a link for a workshop or a meeting that's going to happen with ICLR. So ICLR is going to be in Vienna this year.
Okay.
And protein design is not my area. I mean, I had to study it as biochemistry, molecular biology major, but it is it's a little like ARC.
Yeah.
In that it has some interesting problems in it that have been hard for neural nets to solve, and it's so it's really interesting to get into what AlphaFold is what AlphaFold did and why what it was doing was suddenly doing so much better on these benchmarks. And, it definitely was one of the dramatic discoveries from reinforcement learning. I think beyond some of the game kind of challenges. In the sense that like a lot of machine learning groups have been banging on these same benchmarks for a long time. Anyway, but also that ICLR is going to be in Vienna this year, which is also where organoid work or cerebral organoid work started, and and so another makes me think if there's some way to make ICLR happen so that I can go visit Vienna.
Yeah. So let's finish this. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say I forget whether this was a Logan reference, but again, like the other thing is that there's some interesting. Can we use evolutionary-like process in synthesis to do design?
Right.
And so I forget if that was, I don't know if that was the paper. There's another one there that Logan recommended that again looked interesting. And the reason I put it in bioevolution was that you were kind of trying to use an evolutionary algorithm in a synthetic fashion to do protein design or in some sense protein discovery.
Yeah, I think that's that's kind of viewed as victory for reinforcement learning, but you also have other approaches that might be useful here, and one of those is evolutionary algorithms. And so it's good to see that kind of diversity of models being thrown at the problem.
As I said, it was the long range reasoning. And it's funny too, because that was actually one of the ways in which the developmental psychologist was describing the DARPA challenge. Was that
Yeah, that's good. So I mean, DARPA challenges are often just kind of like throwing a lot of attention at a problem in creative ways, and then sometimes they just kind of disappear. So, okay. Let's finish up the channel here. This article here from Ricard Soleil. This is actually not by Ricard Soleil. This is by Peter Schuster, who's he's a chemist and physicist, and he's worked with the Santa Fe Institute. So this is a paper on the mathematics of Darwin's theory of evolution, 1859 and 150 years later. So this kind of goes over some mathematics, some what they call evolutionary dynamics, which is some work that he's been working on. He was actually the developer of something called the hypercycle, which is something that's very specific to chemistry, but also early life. And then he actually wrote this article on the mathematics of like the theory of natural selection, and kind of talking about this in the context of, I think, some of the chemical models that he's been working on, biophysical models. But I'm not going to go over that paper right now. I might go over it in subsequent weeks, but it's a pretty good paper. There have been a number of attempts to sort of mathematically characterize natural selection and things like that, but it's, again, we'll go over it maybe another day, but it's an interesting paper. Yes, we have a number of things here. I'm looking actually for something specifically. This is actually from Science Advances. This is something, so in 21 papers across Science Advances, and Science TM, these are just the science properties, researchers presented an atlas of the human and non-human primate brain in unprecedented detail. So we talked about this in the DevoWorm meeting this past week. And this is something called the brain cell census. So one thing we're interested in DevoWorm, kind of a subtopic that's kind of been recurring, is, can we characterize different cell types and how many cell types exist in different organisms? So in the human brain, for example, there are a lot of cell types. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish between cell types. Sometimes if you have even a very specific type of neuron in a certain part of the brain, there are many subtypes. And so getting a handle on all these cell types, you can do this by looking under a microscope and looking at the phenotype. You can do it by doing things like single cell genomics and looking at the gene expression patterns. You can look at it by looking at the proteomics. But you still have to define each cell type and say that there are this many cell types in this tissue or in this organism. And so that's what they're trying to do here. A lot of people have attempted this, but really those have just been kind of wild estimates based on kind of limited observations. In this set of papers, though, they do actually do some pretty sophisticated techniques, apply them to try to make sense of how many cells are in the brain and how different cell types can be classified. So this is a classification problem, but it's also an estimation problem. And oftentimes in estimation problems, you need to really kind of, have a very rigorous methodology for doing that and then making a very educated guess. So a lot of, the reason I say that is because in the past, people have tried to estimate the number of cells in the human body or in the human brain, and they varied wildly between groups. And so we've actually covered a number of examples in DevoWorm last year or so, where we've kind of gone over some of these more rigorous methods for estimating cell types. But, as you can imagine, because the human body has trillions of cells, that's a pretty daunting task, and you can't get an exact number because you just can't sample at that coverage. So this is a very good set of papers on this. So we have just, a lot of other things I'm not going to have time to cover, but that's what's been going on in the Bioevolution channel. So yeah, we had some things in the chat here. So we covered this paper. Jesse said, "Curious minds, the power of connection." That's a quote from Danny Bassett. Amanda said, "Regarding metabolism and development, specifically cognitive development, there's this paper, Antenatal Progesterone and Intelligence." So this is on, I guess, administration of progesterone from the middle trimester for the relief of toxemic symptoms. An unexpected finding has been in the clinical observation that children of progesterone-treated mothers appear to reach their milestones earlier and make excellent progress at school. So that's an interesting article. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, that's from the original publication date is 1968. I think surprisingly little follow-up research has been done on that.
Yeah, there are findings like that sometimes. It's kind of interesting.
Well, it again kind of also reminds me of the differences that you get in various organisms, plants as well. Just in terms of using electricity.
Oh yeah.
But it does sound like it's something. I mean, I assume just from the abstract that this is something like organoids, where it's like you're using a growth factor to get development, right?
Yeah.
and you can certainly imagine that would result in some developmental difference in trajectory.
Yeah. And then Jesse says, "I'm curious how metabolism will come up in the cybernetics group more, and or CF methods project in general." So yeah, we should definitely talk more about that. I'm not sure of great ways to talk about or track and or discuss metabolism now that I think of it. Yeah, it's something maybe we can talk about as we go along. I think going over different papers is a good idea, but also maybe kind of revisiting it as maybe like an informal lecture as well.
it was interesting in the discussions with Teresa about like network control, like who's like doing something in Danny Bassett's lab.
Yeah.
Like how network control theory needed, you could bring in metabolism as kind of the it was certainly a way to ground what constituted energy in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure there's much more to. I mean, it's like these were, somewhat connectomic arguments. So I found one paper that was nice that was using PET to, so PET imaging gives you something that gives you a way of kind of monitoring chemistry that, say EEG doesn't, and I think this was actually looking in epilepsy. So that was kind of an interesting way to bring metabolism into these network control theory models, or at least, the kind of equations.
This is a super random question, but like, I'm not familiar with epilepsy at all, and like what's going on with it. But is there much about epilepsy and sort of like it being regulatory, like being regulation, affected by regulation, like mechanism?
Yeah, like mal regulation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, so there's a lot of heterogeneity, right? So like you have to first say that like there can be multiple reasons for seizures, and but one of the first, or one of the ones coming from brain imaging that was interesting is that there's areas of, so if you use a cortical segmentation, so you're actually getting the outer and inner cortical surface, you can find putative epileptic zones from basically areas where the cortex is abnormally large, right? Mm. So this was it's a British neurologist in the mid-90s. Sudhiyaya is, anyway, I'll find his name. But like super early version of like pre-free surfer modeling, and so what you're really looking at is so if you imagine it from a Levin standpoint, right? This was cortex. It's supposed to be forming cortex, but something was off in that development. So the tissue differentiation there wasn't the way it should have been, or like it wasn't like the rest of it. Mm. And so somehow the ratio of cell types or really has this endogenous feedback loop that causes an electrical storm. Would be like a simple narrative with it, right? Okay. And Sudhiyaya, as I want to say, is the neurologist who did I can find that, but there's a lot of other regions that can cause problems, and
Yeah, the last thing I want to say from the other discussion, thank you for that, is I think it might be a good time for me to look a little more into network control theory. Also, I know there's the Santa, like one of the things that might consider to-do list is the Santa Fe like summer school for like complexity stuff.
I saw that. I was thinking the same thing.
I feel like, I don't know if that's there's this range of like modern control theory, complexity science, and emergence stuff, chaos things that they've always been on the periphery, and I feel like, I don't know, like next time we're a little bit like to have a discussion kind of in the lab, and there are things that are kind of bridging condition futures, kind of bridging cybernetics stuff, kind of bridging some of the neurodata stuff that we were talking about. It's like, what sort of like topics of like, what skill sets should we do for that? Because there's sort of like the neuromatch stuff, just a little bit like, you know, the curriculum and the focus on that is one thing, and they're evolving a little bit this year. There's some cool stuff to talk about maybe next time too. But kind of what will be good, you know, for us to try to develop or discuss more in that sense. And then finally, just to go one more time, throw all the way back to that comment that I mentioned Wednesday with the data science thing, is something about, you know, because so much of our daily lives happens, like, is mediated through computational devices, like the data generation is built in because of the way that the computational infrastructure is set up. And I feel like there may be some things there between that and other, like, what are like some analogies in terms of different kinds of metabolism or sort of like generative things that mediums generate, and how can we look at that? That'll be my big lofty nondescript teaser thought for future stuff. I'm gonna have to go soon, but I'll leave on that basically.
All right. Yeah, so thank you. And then Amanda made a comment here. It is one of the many things we mean by embodied, and she meant by like metabolism and the effects of metabolism. Yeah. So this is an epilepsych society, org UK. This is the person. This is the day.
Yeah. Check out some of Sisadia's papers.
Yeah.
He's again. He was ahead of his time in terms of using computer graphic models to look at to identify regions.
Okay.
But anyway, I think he works a lot more on genetics of epilepsy these days.
Okay.
But it would be really interesting to come back to that, especially if he's. I mean, I just saw really quickly that he's doing TMS EEG, and like in terms of modeling, so you can do modeling of the TMS and basically the cortical response, and again thinking about the kind of cortical cellular models and knowing the genetics of the person, and then modifying, seeing if the genetics changes anything in terms of the simulations that you have of those cortical models that again could bring about a, in a sense, a misregulation of feedback that causes a seizure. I think that would be interesting to learn more about.
Then this link that Morgan put, gembio.ai, which is, this is the workshop at the 12th International Conference on Learning Representations. This is generative and experimental perspectives for biomolecular design. So this is like sort of a machine learning approach to biomolecular design.
And again, like it was just JPM Healthcare Investor Week here, and all the big tech companies, people like Dennis Hessabees, they all have new companies that are all focused on biomolecular design, and they have, so there was big announcements of their particular companies working with big drug pharma companies this week. It's going to be, it's really an interesting area that's getting a lot of attention because there is a lot of money, but there's a lot of science going on here too.
Oh yeah, this is great.
It's really important.
Yeah, they have a machine learning track and a biology track. So, yeah, and this looks great. Yeah,
which is nice. And again, like if you know ICLR's history, I mean ICLR has always been a great ML meeting.
yeah,
but again, like really nice to see the the attention to biology here.
right.
And what the possibilities, because again the complexity of cellular systems is such that like you kind of want some augmentation to help do some discovery here.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we're at about time. I was going to do a paper, but I don't think I'm going to do that because I think we'd like to go. So
you'll drop a link
to what?
To the paper you're going to cover.
Oh, I might just cover it next week. Yeah, I mean, I have a number of things I could cover, but I won't. So
I'm always interested.
Yeah, well, yeah. So thanks for attending the meeting. Let's keep up the good work, and I know we had to go through our list of submissions and things, and I want people to keep that in mind. To keep that updated, or what we have to do in the coming months. So that, of course, the world models paper is something we want to accomplish. We need to get like at least an abstract by March 1st. And then, some of these other papers, I really want to make sure that we can achieve these in the new year, because I think it's important to kind of drive things forward in small steps instead of trying to do things at the last minute or missing deadlines or whatever. So I think we're, in pretty good shape, and we just need to, keep at it. So, yeah.
I'll second that and say, I'm slowly trying to build out some infrastructure to make project management a little bit better, and I think I'm going to center it in Discord. So specifically for moving things forward, I know we talked about like the brain organized stuff. I know we're talking about some like tech stuff and neurodivergent stuff, and then obviously creature futures in the reading group. Let's just stay on top of those things and try to find ways to centralize the communications about that, probably in Discord for that. That's my last part, but it's really good stuff, and see you all next week.
All right. Thanks. Have a good weekend.